Live from the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, this is Scientifically Speaking, a weekly half-hour program devoted to elegant curiosities, and I am one of your hosts, Sarah Chang, and joining me, as always, is Bernie Rhyme, DJ Starwatcher. How are you, Bernie?
Yes, hi Sarah, very good, thank you.
Bernie's our professor of the astronomy lab over at the University of Southern Maine and our local protector of the night skies. You know, it's funny, I added that in, but I'm not really sure what, you're protecting.
Well, if nothing else, the whole aspect of light pollution is kind of interesting.
That
Um,
is interesting, yeah. Yeah, I guess you're an
yeah,
advocate for that. I just figured, because
yeah,
you tell us to look up
yeah,
and to get more people to care and to look up
yeah,
and to be interested, that's
and
protecting our night
right,
sky.
and making better light so we don't lose that heritage. So it is a
Yeah.
factor. Yeah,
Yeah. All right, we'll keep that title then.
okay, yeah. Keep the title up. Yeah,
Reach out to us at WMPG, scientifically speaking, at gmail.com or on Twitter at WMPG SciSpeak. I'm doing way better at Twitter now. So I've been adding pictures and supplementary stuff and links to our recorded sessions. So definitely check it out. And if you want to complain at me and you prefer another platform, do so, and I will try to make that happen. Bernie,
yes.
what is up in the night sky for this coming week?
Okay, well, the week won't be as exciting as last week, and it's kind of hard to tell because we're recording this a few days before December 18th. So a lot of interesting things will have happened, like the solar eclipse in Argentina, the Geminid meteor shower, things like that. But right now on the 18th, this will be a waxing crescent moon. It'll set around 8:30. So, and Jupiter and Saturn will be really close together by this point. They're not at their best yet until the winter solstice on the 21st, but hopefully you've been watching them. They'll be about less than a quarter of a degree apart right now. That's less than the width of the full moon, which is a half a degree. So they're getting really close. I just hope it's clear on the winter solstice to actually see that. In any case, they'll be close for a week or two, but the very closest point will be right on the solstice by about 5 p.m. So look forward to that. Then, of course, Mars is still up. It's still fairly orange. It's still closer than usual because it only gets close every 26 months. And it was at its very best in October, so it's still pretty good. And then if you get up early, Venus is up probably about an hour and a half before sunrise. So other than that, that's probably it for this week, other than the things that have already happened, which hopefully worked out well.
Awesome. Thanks, Bernie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And if you couldn't take notes fast enough, you can also check out the monthly What's Up column in the Portland Press Herald. So for today's show, I initially had titled it Spacious Samples. But then I thought maybe we're kind of focusing on two specific missions. Well, one is kind of a group of missions, and one is a single mission, although now it's extended into other missions. So,
Two
as
groups.
of the 6th, we had some really awesome news of a sample return for the Japan Space Agency. And so they had Hayabusa 2, which translates to Peregrine Falcon. And this was a mission that was launched on December 3rd, 2014, to go to the asteroid Ryugu, which is a kilometer wide diamond shaped asteroid composed primarily of nickel and iron. And this particular asteroid is really interesting because it's really near Earth. And so it may, in the future, not anytime soon, but may pose an impact threat. And another interest is that we may be able to send spacecraft to mine it for valuable metals, of course, because that's all humans like to do is exploit. Um, and then three, it also carries information about how our solar system formed billions of years ago. So, I is it an Apollo type asteroid? Do you know, Bernie? I actually
Um,
don't
could
remember.
be. It's 7 million miles away, so it's pretty close. It's about like, five or six football fields across. Um, so it's not potentially hazardous, but it's not way out in the asteroid belt,
Yeah,
obviously. That close, yeah.
yeah. So, this mission launched on December 3rd, 2014, and it rendezvoused with the asteroid in 2018, June. And so basically, it spent several years just kind of orbiting around, spinning around just to get to the asteroid and then spun with it for a few months. And then finally on February 22nd, 2019, so last year, the robotic spacecraft touched down and collected a sample from the surface. And then last year, in November, it departed from the asteroid and finally re entered Earth on December 5th, 2020, landing in Australia. So I was wondering, Bernie, do you mind if I take our listeners through a journey of how uh, that trajectory happened and
Oh yeah,
getting
it's
back to
fine. I was
Earth?
watching some videos on that. They're kind of interesting,
Yeah, it is really
and
cool.
Shen
I
watched
mean,
that too to
yeah,
see how
I
well they.
think any of these kinds of missions are
Yeah.
always really cool because it's
Mhm.
not a direct, like
Oh
we
yeah, no,
think of it.
nothing's
Yeah.
direct up there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can do that, and then also obviously mention to our listeners that they can, watch a video or something on
Yeah,
themselves.
so you can't watch a video, but I'm going to take you through an audio tour. So,
Okay.
on September 17th of this year, Hayabusa 2 was about 22 million miles away from Earth, and then it began a terminal guidance phase by making a bunch of maneuvers called trajectory correction maneuvers. And this happened throughout basically the entire month of October. So it gets to about 1 million miles away from Earth, and that's when it starts kind of finalizing the last bit of maneuvers of the trajectory. So then at 136,000 miles from Earth, the capsule containing the samples separate from the spacecraft officially on 12/5. And then about 125,000 miles away, the spacecraft changed to Earth departure trajectory. So capsule separated, spacecraft basically diverts course and it will use its remaining propellant, which is xenon propellant, to fly out and explore additional targets, specifically two Apollo type asteroids. One is the 2001 CC21. Beautiful name.
Yeah, right.
And that'll happen in July of 2026. And the 1998 KY26 asteroid, which that will happen on July of 2031. So, interestingly, the original weight of the propellant was 146 pounds, and as of now, it has about 66 pounds left. So,
Hmm.
I wonder if it will be able to make it that far.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it's very ambitious.
so the capsule, so the spacecraft, went and now it's going on its way. And the capsule entered our atmosphere at a speed of about 7 miles per second. That's crazy. Eventually, it gets to this fireball phase, and so you can actually see it, going across the sky like a meteor. So it slows down to about 2 miles per second, and then it begins this ballistic descent, falling to about 400 feet a second. The heat shield separates, the parachute deploys at about 6 miles above the ground, and it reduces the speed to about 19 feet per minute. And then finally, it lands on 12/6 at 2:47 Japan Standard Time. And ultimately, what we have learned is that a parachute stored for years in deep space still works great. Um, that's our takeaway.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the capsule itself is about 16 inches in diameter, about half that in height, and weighs a total of about 35 pounds. And I think the same day they came in a helicopter, picked it up, and went back home. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was the timeline of the capsule coming back to Earth. And I don't know if they've learned anything yet, have they?
Probably not. I know I was surprised how little they collected, only about 100 milligrams, which is the tenth of a gram. And they're going to share some of that with NASA, and then we're going to give them some of the samples from Bennu in 2023. So it's kind of nice that we're sharing some of those samples. I don't think they've really analyzed them yet.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I know that they
Mhm.
I'm not sure how they knew exactly the elements. I know they said iron and nickel.
Right, so there's different types. There's the C type, which is the most common, which is what Ryugu is. Then there's the S types that have more silicates, and then the B types with basalts like Bennu. So it's good that they picked two very different types so they can swap the samples and learn about it. But the C-types, even though they're common, they could actually be very interesting because they could have generated some amino acids. They have some organic compounds in there. They may even be able to generate RNA, ribonucleic acid, and they could have kickstart life on Earth from all the different asteroids and comets and things that have hit us over the billions of years. So that'll be interesting if they can make that connection. And just even before they actually analyze the sample, they already know quite a bit about this asteroid. They know that it's fairly young. It's only about 9 million years old. It was part of a much bigger group of asteroids. So it was a whole family of objects that split off, being fairly small, like 5 or 6 football fields across. We know that it's kind of sandy underneath. They're called rubble piles. They're very loose. They're not very dense like you go out in bedrock in your lawn or something and, it's nice and dense granite. Nothing like that. They're like a rubble pile. So it's fairly young and unstable underneath. So they know all that already. So I guess what they're really going to be looking for are the amino acids and the organic and, any of the RNA and those type of things that they can get more detail into.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool.
Mhm.
So I don't know when we'll hear the first findings from it.
Yeah.
But how much sample did you say they were
It's
ultimately able
much
to?
less than it's 100 milligrams. That's a tenth of a gram, and there's 28 grams to the ounce. So it's
Mm,
very little, and they share about 10% of that with us, with NASA, us being our country. But I don't know why they couldn't collect more. I mean, they actually twice they collected things. You mentioned one of the dates, but they had a second touchdown on the asteroid on July 11th of 2019.
oh yeah, yeah,
So they collected material twice, but maybe they only got 100 milligrams.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's,
and I don't think that I'm giving it justice either to how incredible this is actually.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because it never actually it's not like the spacecraft like latched onto the asteroid. It like flew
yeah,
with it the
yeah.
entire time. I don't actually know how far apart it flew like next to it.
I came across, they were like 20 meters apart for a long time. And then it just came down and did that twice to get the samples. Yeah, so it's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like an action film
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. Like if you can just picture that and um, I don't know what the speed that it's moving at up there, but
Or probably at least 10 to 15 miles per second. I mean, it's
yeah,
fast.
not slow.
Oh, yeah, no, it's probably almost as fast as the Earth. Everything's in orbit, and we're
Yeah.
orbiting 18 miles per second from our point in the solar system. So that's going to be pretty close to that speed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, not slow by any means. And
Yeah.
I think if you can, certainly go online and check out the one of the touchdowns that it did.
Hmm.
It's very it's almost like it hits the asteroid and um, material is released from the surface of the asteroid. So that's how they collected the samples.
Yeah.
But engineering wise, this was pretty incredible
Yeah.
um, and kind of jaw dropping. It's just hard to
Mhm.
imagine it in some ways because we can't actually see it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
I think they can just use Newtonian physics for that. They don't really have to use relativity because those effects really don't go into play at those
yeah,
speeds. I mean, they're fast for us. They're faster than high-power bullets and everything, but they're still not, relativistic speeds. Like for GPS to work, you need relativity. But otherwise, there's Newtonian mechanics to get to all these. When we got to Saturn, when we got to Pluto, we got there perfectly. The tiny spot that we had to be at to get the sun, across from Pluto when we did that mission and so on. The Mercury mission is really fascinating because they have to take the precession of its orbit into account. They're literally spiraling around Mercury for like 5 years before they can finally land on it. So that's even more difficult with the sun's strong gravity.
yeah, yeah.
Everything's always in motion. Even we actually impacted a comet on July 4th of 2005. That was called Deep Impact. So that was Comet Tempel 1. So we dropped a washing machine size copper object on it and made a big crater like 50 meters across and took a picture of all this happening. So that all we did there, we got in the way of the comet and let the speed of the comet run into this thing that we put there. So everything always, so we didn't, like here on Earth, you think, oh yeah, we're going to shoot something at it, something still. No, we let the comet run into it. So I always say that we kind of got revenge for all the comets that have hit the Earth we got revenge in 2005 and we finally hit a comet. Yeah.
That's a interesting
Yeah.
interesting thing to bring up actually in the context of all of this.
Yeah. But it took less skill because we didn't try to get any samples back. We just wanted to see all the
Right,
dust that was raised and we saw the crater and stuff. This took a lot more skill because we got samples back now. So
right, right.
yeah. Hmm.
So the next part of the show, we wanted to cover the lunar missions by the Chinese National Space Administration.
Hmm.
And so they have had, I believe, five now. And it's all like a succession of one, two, three, four, five of the Chang'e mission, which is basically named after the goddess of the moon, which, if you know anything about um, Chinese kind of mythology and festivals and things like that, it actually comes from this story that you would hear about during Mid Autumn Festival, which is the festival that celebrates the harvest moon back in every October. And so basically, it's this goddess that there's like a love story there, and basically she gets sent to be on the moon forever. And there's a rabbit there, and so the rover that they also sent up there is called Yutu, which means like jade rabbit. And so, anyways, it's this mythological rabbit that lives on the moon. Um, so yeah, I think they interlace a lot of these kinds of stories and folklore with their mission names, which is kind of it's cool. So
Actually, I
anyways,
looked into that story a little bit too. Um, she was actually known for stealing an elixir of immortality from
yeah,
so, and he would like represent the sun, and she would represent the moon. So it's that whole yin yang thing going on and everything. So that was pretty interesting.
yeah. Basically, she was banished because of
Yeah, yeah. That's that. You don't want to steal that.
it.
Yeah.
They have had a couple of missions. And I don't know if Bernie, do you want to go over all of them or do you want to just focus on
I
the
really
fifth
just
one?
looked at the fifth one. I did come across the fact that four of those five are now active on the moon. So that's
Mhm.
kind of interesting. I know one
Yeah,
discovered some molecular water in the lunar regolith. It's not soil because it's not living. So that's pretty neat. That will help us when we get to the moon to have, you
yeah. I think from their third mission, Chang'e 3, back in 2015, the rover also discovered basically a new basaltic rock, which is rich in ilmenite. And that's like a black mineral containing a really large percentage of iron titanium oxide. And then I think their fourth one, um, was it the fourth or the second that went, it actually went to the space facing side of the moon.
Mhm.
Um, and I think they had a lot of trouble communicating with it. But one of the cool things was that they had brought a bunch of seeds and they, grew them from seed. But what happened was the rover, I think, wanted needed to shut down to conserve battery, and without that heat, all of the plants died.
That's good.
So, yeah, and then I think I'm thinking that it's the second one. Got all the missions are like really confusing, but I'm thinking that it's the second one that also produced really detailed lunar maps,
Hmm.
which is really cool as well.
Yeah.
And so this is the all five of these, and there will be a sixth. These missions are the first to be back on the moon in the last since like 40 years now, right? 1976
72 is when
or
we
so.
last we landed on the
Yeah.
moon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the Soviet Union had Luna 24, which had soft landed on the moon in 1976
Oh, okay. So they had
as
something.
well. Yeah. So, I mean, still, it's been about 40 years. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about Chang'e 5.
Yeah.
What did you learn, Bernie?
Okay. Well, it was launched on November 23rd. Of course, it doesn't take long to get to the moon. It's like 3 days. Um, it has to do all its work in the next 2 weeks, basically. I mean, the 2 weeks up to now. Yeah, because it's a day it's solar powered, and one day on the moon, of course, lasts for 2 weeks. The daytime part of a day, one day equals a whole month. So it will have hopefully brought them back by the 17th Of course, we're doing this show a few days early, so we know exactly. So it's supposed to get about 4 pounds of moon rocks, but it'll be different because it's drilling down 2 meters or over 6 feet into the lunar surface. So it'll be something new, and they're going to be younger rocks, more basalts. We already have a half a ton of moon rocks from our previous missions. So it will be different and it'll be interesting. They planted the first Chinese flag ever on the moon. So everyone's staking out some territory on the moon now. And then this is going to land in Inner Mongolia. So they're going to see like the samples we talked about earlier, they landed in Australia. So yeah, so we don't know exactly what they're going to look like yet, but it's a new, we're going to learn new things about it from this mission.
Yeah. So then the current lunar rocks that we have, are those just surface rocks?
Yeah,
They
right.
didn't
We
dig
picked
into.
them up with the astronauts that were physically picking them up. Yeah. This is like the ultimate drone because this is all remote, of course. The Chinese haven't sent any human to the moon. So, like, you see these drones out flying by the ocean when you have nice surf and you have surfers and everything. So now there's a drone with the whole separation, going to the moon, coming back up, being solar powered. So it's very technically interesting also, even though it's only 3 days away. But yeah, so it's no humans involved, but they are going to learn some new things and they're going to go below the surface. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, yeah. So this mission landed near Mons Rumker,
Mhm.
which is a mountain overlooking that basaltic lunar plain. And that plain was called Oceanus Procellarum.
Yeah,
I feel like all of the names on
yeah,
both on Mars and on the
yeah.
moon, like where did these
Well,
names
it
come
means sea of
from?
storms. Yeah, they have the Latin word for sea of,
Yeah, yeah,
First they thought that the dark areas, now we know they're volcanic, but they look like seas or oceans. Of course, there's no water, liquid water in the moon. So that's why they called them seas.
yeah.
And Sea of Tranquility, Sea of Serenity, where the Apollo astronauts landed, and so on. Yeah,
I feel like it's so
the reason.
so ethereal. Like I don't know, it's like a
Well,
magical place.
yeah. Well, they used to think Venus was this great place too, like permanent tropical paradise, and it's 900 degrees. It's the worst place you can imagine.
Wait, when did we think it was a tropical paradise?
Before any scientific missions were ever sent there. Even in Japanese, the word for Venus is like, this green perfect place.
Okay, I see. Kind of like a
But on the mythology, yeah,
yeah,
before we
yeah.
knew anything about what it's really like. So, mhm.
Wait, what about Mars?
Well, Mars was always kind of the god of war, so I think that was seen to be a pretty, not a great place. It's the first place we're going to go to in humans. Probably less will be Mars. That's kind of ironic too. I mean,
Yeah,
very hospitable, but we can live there if we have the proper spacesuits and underground and all the habitats, like you saw the movie The Martian, probably, and so on.
sure,
So
sure.
it's a good place to go to. But
Yeah. And so hopefully these new samples will help us answer questions about the formation of both the moon and the Earth. And yeah, like you said, the 17th, right, is when it'll return.
yeah, so by the time you hear this, they'll be back. But I'm sure they will not have analyzed them yet because they haven't done the samples for
Right.
Ryugu yet either.
Yeah, I'm sure it takes time.
Yeah.
So another sample return mission actually is the Chang'e 6, and that will go to the south pole of the moon, the Aitken Basin, and it also aims to bring back rocks from this ancient impact. And I'm not sure when that will launch, but sometime after the return of five. Uh,
Yeah.
and so that material would represent some of the oldest samples taken from the lunar surface. And then lastly, there are two more. Again, there's so many missions; it's hard to keep track. But there's two more. So one is the Chang'e 7, will then follow, and that one will do additional surveys around the South Pole, studying just the terrain and additional landforms. And then the last mission that is currently planned is the Chang'e 18. And that one is going to test some technology that will hopefully lay the groundwork for a research base on the moon. Um, so, Brittany, there is another mission that the Chinese are working on as well, right?
Yes, there is. It's called Tianwen-1. It's the first attempt for the Chinese to go to Mars, It's already been launched. Everything is going great so far. It's going to get there in February, so fairly soon. And it's actually a three-in-one mission. I mean, often you might get a lander and or an orbiter, but they're doing a lander, a rover, and an orbiter. So all three are going up there. It's their first attempt on Mars, so they're very ambitious. So basically, they have tried this like 9 years ago with the Russians, and it didn't work. So it's not easy to get to Mars successfully. This will be the 49th mission that anyone on Earth has sent there. And at one point, about half of our missions had failed. A lot of those were
Mhm.
some of the earlier Russian missions that maybe weren't engineered quite as well, because we're to blame too. We had failed missions and so on. But when they get there in February, we'll certainly do another show on that. And hopefully they'll be successful in all three parts of their attempt to go to Mars.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And is that just one mission or are there two?
It's 10-1-1. They're probably going to launch another one. And also that since we were getting into some of the meanings of these words, which I always find interesting, that actually means questions to heaven. So the moon one makes sense because that's like, the moon goddess and so on. But now they're kind of expanding out beyond the moon over to Mars. And I guess a Chinese poet back in 300 BC wrote about this and he named one of his characters Chen Wen. So that's questions to heaven. So hopefully they'll learn a lot about Mars and maybe even something about heaven when they get land there early, actually about the middle of before spring. They should land there late this winter. That'll be something to
Yeah.
look for.
Uh, well, wait, I thought the orbiter will get there in February and then the
Yeah, so
lander
I don't know
in
when the
April.
rover and the lander part. They
Yeah.
may orbit it for a little while at first. Again, it's a three-in-one mission.
Yeah. I think the proposed landing is April.
Oh, that one's
Um,
okay. Another one was February. Good. Three
mhm.
things are going. We're sending the Perseverance with a little drone, and then the United Arab Emirates are sending something called Hope. That's only it's called I hope they make it right. Um, that's only going to be an orbiter, so it won't be as risky. But three things, a total of six spacecraft are heading there right now. So they're going to land between February and April. So yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
yeah, good.
I did want to spend some time just kind of acknowledging the latest announcement of the 18 astronauts for NASA's lunar mission that will happen in, when did you say it was? 4 years
About
from now.
4 years. Yeah.
About 4 years from now. Um, so this is really exciting. They announced 18 astronauts selected to be part of NASA's Artemis program. And we won't get into too many details. I just wanted to kind of do a brief little overview.
Yeah, we want to do a
Um,
whole show on this at some point. So yeah,
Bernie wants to do a
I
whole
want to do a show.
show.
Well, it's important. I mean, I learned a lot about it when I was at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. They spent a
Oh,
lot
did you?
there back in February talking about this. It's a really interesting mission that people should know about.
Yeah. Yeah, no. It's just to really brief our listeners. So the Artemis program is a collaboration with commercial and international partners. SpaceX is one of them. I know that there's two other companies that are helping them build I can't remember the name, but it's like a human lander. And basically, it's going to be a reusable lander that will be safe for humans to land in, rather than, just landing like from above. And so NASA is looking also, like China, to establish a sustainable presence on the moon and ultimately prepare for missions to Mars. So 18 astronauts were selected, and Bernie, the first one that they selected, you almost had a chance to meet him, Joseph Acaba, right?
Yeah. He gave the opening talk at the Johnson Space Center when I went there for the Science Teachers Conference. So I
Cool.
didn't meet him personally because there were 600 teachers from around the world there. But yeah, so he gave a really good presentation about what it takes to be an astronaut and all the things you have to do and get through and what kind of person you have to be and everything. Yeah, so Joe is on the list. I'm glad about that.
Sweet. And so, of course, we also wanted to highlight that Jessica Meir is our local Mainer from Caribou,
Yep.
who has also been selected, and she, along with I think it was Christina Koch, were the first. Were they the first women in the International Space Station? They weren't
They
the
were the
first, but
first
they were.
dual woman spacewalk
Yeah,
team.
yeah, that's what it was.
Right.
And Jessica came back. April.
April, yeah.
And yeah, so she's been selected for that team, which is
Yep.
really exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad because I met her personally twice during Space Day events. She gave presentations and things, and I had my students listen to an interview from her. I was telling them even before the selection that now she could be the first woman to walk on the moon. And sure enough, now she may well be. At least she's in that group of 18. I think nine are men and nine are women.
Yeah.
But in that group, and even if she's the second woman, she'll be one of the first women to walk on the moon, if
Yeah.
not first.
No,
So that,
I mean the whole team is a stellar selection and makes me feel very unaccomplished.
yeah, all the degrees they have and all the languages and things they've done, and all this stuff they do for sports. Like Christina is a mountain a rock climber. She does like Stephen Alex Honnold's top rock climbing. It's amazing what some of these people can time they have to do these high risk sports, and then they can do all these other things. So I don't know how they do that.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So anyways, we wanted to give them a little shout out. Congratulations to Jessica for being selected. That's really exciting. And coming up in a future show, we'll share more from our research.
Yeah.
You have been listening to Scientifically Speaking here on WMPG 90.9 with myself and Bernie. Stay tuned for Sports Jam with Cullen and Connor. And from your favorite nerds, mask up and we wish you healthy bodies and clean air.